Yo! Welcome everyone to the We Are Gamers series. My name is your host, Jolly Psycho, a gamer with a passion for potatoes and Pokemon. Now, you might be wondering, where's your dad? Well, unfortunately, he decided to go take a really, really quick nap, which turned into like a 6 hour one. Trust me, I know. I'm just joking. He's actually right here next to me, and on this special episode of the 1v1, we are going to be interviewing him. Yay. Well, I'm not. My mom is actually. I just came here for the intro. So now I'm going to pass the mic on to my mom, Mr. Goo. That's not her actual name. Her name is actually Cheyenne, but yay. Okay. Make sure to share the podcast with your friends and I'll see you whenever I come on next. All right. Let's do the old
Okay, that intro was way better than mine. So from now on, we're gonna have her do all the intros for all the podcasts. And as she said, today we are doing our 1v1 with me. I mean, this has been a great series. We've had a really, everyone that I've interviewed, literally every single person has been an amazing, amazing, amazing experience. And I figured, you know what? Let me get a shot. It's been a couple people have said, hey Tone, are you going to get interviewed? And I was like, because I wanted to do this, to interview the other people, my other friends, other gamers that I know, streamers, because it was more about them than myself, And as time went on, things happened. I've a lot of people don't know this, but I've actually lost my sight. I'm now legally blind, so I haven't been able to game in the last 2 months, which has been a bit daunting, sad. I miss my hobby, I do, but we're gonna start. We're gonna start this 1v1, and let me take it to my wife, the woman who has supported me in every crazy endeavor that I have taken, even this podcast. So, Jan, take it away.
So, what is your name and what online gamer name or names do you usually use online?
That is a great question. So the game name that I use online is Psychosis. It's either a mix of Psychosis or Omicron Lee. Omicron Lee being from a derivative of Bruce Lee, because growing up I was a huge Bruce Lee fan, and then Omicron was always like a science fiction name that I really liked. Psychosis actually was a name I started when I first started playing a game called Jumpgate. It was a MMO. It was a space dogfighting MMO, and yeah, it was Psychosis with 3 zeros. That was my call sign because it wasn't your gamer name; it was your call sign, and that was such a good game. And the Psychosis part was actually so I wanted a name, because I was a little crazy younger, and I actually had I kind of had some psychosis issues growing up, and I was like, man, how can I just, you want to get a name, and I don't know what was it, but I spelt it the way it looked, and I was because psychosis with a P or whatever, and I was like, let me just spell it Sykosys, and it's funny because a lot of people don't really know that's what it actually says. They think it's like sickosis or something like that, and it's really funny. So that's actually where the name came from.
Well, since you answered the second question, we just go straight on to the third question. What
I
is
do.
your age and when did you start gaming?
All right, so I actually can't see the questions, which is what's funny. So I didn't realize I answered them both, which I guess is good. So I'm 42. I'm 42 years old. I started gaming. It's funny, I've asked everyone all these questions, and now that I'm being asked them, it's like, when did I start gaming? I remember. So I was young. I was pretty young. I had to be at least 5 or 6. Yeah, and I started with the Atari. The Atari, not the 2600, the one before that. I think it started with it was either the Ford. Oh man, I can't remember, but it was right before the 2600, and yeah, that's where I started. That's how old I was when I started gaming. So I've been gaming for a long time, man. I'm old. Yeesh.
What was it about video games that drew you to play them?
So, and this is interesting because the reason I got into gaming, there's two reasons actually. One was one day at my grandmother's house, and my uncle lived at my grandmother's house. I heard a bunch of commotion in the upstairs room where my uncle lived. And again, I was really young, and I was just like, what the heck? They sound like they're having like a really great time. And this was my uncle Kike. He passed away a few years ago, great dude. But they were so him, my dad, and a few of their brothers and some friends, they were all in this little room playing tennis on the Atari with there were these paddles. They weren't the joysticks. It was a paddle pad. So it was actually 4 players. And it was quite possibly, I was amazed at what was happening because I'm like, wow, they're all, and they were talking junk, like they were really like like they were playing each other like on a basketball team, the 2v2. It was so crazy. I saw how much fun that was. And I said to myself, wow, I really want to do this. And actually, yeah, that is the main reason. The other reason was a computer game. I learned about computers shortly after and learned that you can actually make games, and the prospect of actually being able to create video games had me floored. I was amazed. I'm watching this gameplay, and I remember it was my uncle Archie. He's explaining to me, yeah, computer, you could do this. You can all everything that you're doing now. I remember the first PC game I played, it was called Row. And it was the original Row game where you were like a little smiley face going into dungeons that were these little boxes. It was on a dual boot system. So you needed 2 floppy disks to boot this thing up into DOS. And yeah, I saw that for me, I realized the limitless possibilities of computer gaming at that moment, and I was hooked.
How was your family reaction when you started gaming?
So it's interesting because my family, they were real conservative Christian, and they kind of frowned on gaming. They did not, to this day, which is funny because one of the main reasons I enjoy gaming so much is because my actual dad, I saw him gaming, and I actually wanted to do that with him. And what ended up happening is that we eventually did with the Atari. I remember we would challenge each other to get the highest scores, and he would get so mad because I was just so obsessed with it, and I would just go so hard. I remember it was 2 games. It was Asteroids and Sequest, and those are 2 games that have no ending. You just keep playing it to get the highest score possible, and it just gets so hard that eventually it just almost becomes impossible to play. But we would just keep going and see who got the highest score. My dad would come home, and I'd be like, Dad, I got this score, whatever. He was like, what? He's like, all right. And then he would try to beat it, and then sometimes he would beat it, so then I would have to I would see the number and I'm like, all right, I know the metric I have to beat. And yeah, I mean, so growing up, they really weren't. So outside of that, they really didn't want me gaming a lot. They saw it as a waste of time. They always thought I should be outside playing, which I was, which is weird. I look back on my childhood and I was outside a lot. But I also did game a lot. And gaming was still new. This was the late 80s, early 1990s, and gaming was seen as a misfit type of behavior almost. And they didn't really want me because they saw how I would get. They said I would look like I was high while I was playing. Mind you, I was in 1990. I was 10 years old, so I kind of didn't know what they were talking about because I really wasn't into. I was never really introduced to drugs until after during high school. So I'm saying to myself, what does that even look like, And they would just say, you just get obsessed, you don't get off. So they were really they weren't so keen on, even to this day, if I talk to my dad and I'll talk about gaming, it's funny, he won't seem so thrilled about it still, even if I'm playing with my kids or other family members like my brother. He's just like, "Oh, you playing those games?" Mind you, this is a guy who can play the Yu-Gi-Oh game for at least 10 hours straight, yelling that the game is a cheater, but apparently,
Tell us about your heritage and cultural background.
So I am actually Puerto Rican Haitian, more in touch with my Puerto Rican side. My Haitian side, it was weird. We were only told really that we were Haitian to let us know. That's why half our family was dark skinned, I guess, because they figured we might think it was weird. But someone growing up, going to a family's house, seeing people who were black and brown, to me was normal. So I didn't think anything of it. It was only, until I would say maybe during college that such things actually people made a big deal out of it. And I was like, oh, okay, where grew up, as a Puerto Rican with black relatives, and they didn't think anything of it really. That's really my culture. I've been to Puerto Rico a lot. I haven't gone actually in oof, it's been a while. When I was younger, I went a lot. So
Any positive or negative impact your culture has had on your gaming experience?
this is always an interesting question for me and my family. So as a Puerto Rican, doing doing things that are important are what a family considers as, I guess, important. So, getting a job, getting a real job, gaming is not a real job. Doing going to school, keep going to school. Like these things are what they considered important. So, gaming was actually something that they hated. They after we got our Nintendo, and I remember it was my grandmother who bought us the Nintendo because my parents did not want anything to do with the Nintendo. They were like, no. They were actually upset that my grandparents got us a Nintendo. They were pissed, and I remember their face. I was so confused because I'm like, why are they upset? This is one of the greatest gifts my brother and I have ever received. At the time, and we were so excited when we received it, and my parents, they were just so they were so bummed. And I think even the Super Nintendo, a family member got us. It wasn't my parents. They were just so against gaming, and other people in my family were as well. It was really a mixed bag. So you had one camp that hated gaming because they thought it was a waste. They were like, oh, what are you going to do? Whereas, and then you had the other group that saw it as a hobby. They saw it for what it was. It was a hobby that you could do. And interestingly, the sad part was my dad stopped playing games with us for some reason. And I would always ask him to try stuff out. He loved Rogue Squadron. He loved games like Star Fox. Those were his games, and he was the only one who would actually like pick it up. And it was so funny because he was one of those guys. He was in his, I guess, 30s and 40s when I was 10 years old. He's trying to move the spaceship by moving the controller. I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Where he's trying to move, so he's he's actually moving the controller to try to move the ship. So if the ship doesn't move while he's moving, he gets frustrated. It was the funniest thing to watch, and I never understood how his hand-eye coordination wasn't wasn't that good. But he really didn't game the way me and my brother did growing up. But I mean, culturally, especially in a Hispanic household, in our household, it was really looked down upon.
Why do you still play video games?
Oh, this is a sad question because right now I kind of don't. I unfortunately, like I said, the last few months, and you can hear my voice cracking because it's sad. I've had to, well, not had to. I just can't. I can't play video games. I might queue up League of Legends in an ARAM, but I could barely see what the heck is going on. And we win because we get carried, and it's like, oof, they lost to a guy with a blind guy on their team. You know what I mean? And I laugh about it, but it kind of sucks. I mean, gaming was a fun hobby of mine. It was how I passed the time, how I interacted with a lot of people. Even with this podcast, I had this podcast to showcase the real lives of people. That us gamers aren't just these ragey, whiny, well, not all the time anyway, people that just have no lives and are just, I guess, that people see as inconsequential or just like worthless. We gamers are people, and unfortunately, I've had to deal with the real side of life with health and things like that. But so before I lost my eyesight, the reason I kept gaming was for those reasons. I enjoyed the interaction with real life friends. I've made a lot of new friends online. Great friends. Half of them I've interviewed already. So you've gotten also to know these wonderful people, and it was a good way to use your imagination to get away from life's troubles at times. That's for sure.
What is your favorite video game?
What is my favorite video game? Oh, that's easy. Super Metroid, hands down. That is my absolute number one favorite video game of all time. And I've had debates about this with several people, and yeah, it hits all the buttons. It hits all the buttons for me. I remember that was probably the first game that I was so into growing up, and it was just so good. Like I've never played anything like it. I played the original Metroid, and I actually thought the original Metroid was slow. So I remember when I first picked this up, I was worried. I was like, "Oh no, this game is going to hopefully someone actually bought it for me. I got it as a gift. I don't remember if it was Christmas, birthday, or, whenever, but it was gifted to me, and I was skeptical going in, but I got so enthralled by that game to the point that I was doing speed runs of it, recording them on VHS. Of course, all those VHS tapes are gone. Even though I have one VHS tape, but that has my backyard wrestling videos on it. But I digress. That was the game, and I see people speed running it now, and these dudes, they're pretty amazing. I mean, there's this one guy. I think the record for any items or something is like less than 30 minutes, which I've actually done. I've done that. I've done it that fast. It's crazy.
What is your one gaming memory that you will never forget?
My number one gaming memory that I will never forget. All right, so this one I gotta set up for you. So I'm in high school, it's junior year, and there's a game I really like. It was called Killer Instinct. It was a fighting game. Some people know it, some people don't. It wasn't Street Fighter, it wasn't Tekken, it wasn't Virtual Fighter. It was none of those games. It was its own. It had this wild combo system, and I really enjoyed this game. I played it in the arcade, part one, and then the second part came up on the Super Nintendo. So there's one day, it was a after school program, an after school program, and I'll never forget. I knew this game so well. I heard it being played in one of the, and I was a loner in high school. I wasn't exactly a dude that hung out with a lot of people. I was, pretty much to myself by choice. I was just like bleh to whatever. I didn't like drama, things like that. So I'm just, I'm cutting school. No, it wasn't. I wasn't cutting school at the time. It was after school. I was literally just roaming the halls. I don't know why, because I used to just be random, just roam around. And I heard the game. And I'm saying to myself, oh, somebody's playing Killer Instinct. I peep my head into this room and I see everyone gathered around a TV screen. It's a small TV screen. Remember, this is this is in the 1990s, so LCD screens really hadn't taken off. So it was a CRT. It was a CRT TV, not or two. I don't remember. It was one of those box TVs. And there's this guy whipping everyone's butt with this character named Jago, who is a he was like a ninja basically. And he's going around the room. I'm so at this point I snuck in and I'm just nonchalant. I saw a few people I knew, so they said what's up. So I was like, okay, cool, I could be here. It's not like totally random that I'm just just in a random room, not knowing a single person. And he's running the room, beating person after person. No one can beat this guy. No one can beat this guy. And it comes to a point no one wants to play because he's just beat. He has literally beat everyone. There was at least 30 people in this room, and he's like, no one else. I go, hey, can I try? He was like, sure. I've never met this dude before. This is the first day, mind you. We developed a really good friendship out of high school, and his name is Brian. And I'll never forget this day. He's like, all right, and he just there was no expectation, nothing. See, now I already saw how he played. I knew he was good, and he I guess it was just crazy. So the first game, I gave it to him. I guess he was totally unprepared. I used a character called Spinal, and we went at it, and I beat him. He was totally unprepared. I beat him, and everyone's going crazy. He's like, "Yo, let's go again." And then the next time, I guess, since he kind of knew what was going to happen, we went back and forth. And I remember he beat me. I think it was three out of the four games after that. And I was determined. And after that, we developed such a friendship, and we would just play Killer Instinct. So I would go to his house after school all the time, and we would just, to the point that we got so good at the game that we couldn't play that game at other people's houses. But I would never forget that day. That day, first of all, I beat him, and even he was like, "Yo, who is this guy?" Because nobody knew who I was in the school, even though you know what I mean. Because I wasn't popular. I was just some random dude wearing a trench coat. Because I was one of those kids who had a crazy beard, mind you. I looked like I was 30 years old. as a sophomore, and I just went in and I gave it to him. I gave it. He was totally unprepared for it. Totally unprepared for it, and that actually started a great friendship, man. That was a good memory.
How do you feel the evolution of technology has impacted your own gaming experience in a positive or a negative way?
So this is interesting. I had an answer for this a few months back, but now now is interesting. So the evolution of technology has been both positive and negative. I like the social aspect that has been garnered. A lot of people have shared this. So, you know, a lot of games have shared comms. There's so many group activities you can do, and it's so easy to just jump into a game with other people. That's one thing I always liked. I remember with StarCraft 1. Oh no, Warcraft, matter of fact. It was Warcraft 2. I remember I used to play it on the I used to play it through the phone lines when you would dial up. And I remember playing that game online with my cousin, and that was so much fun. I would call him. I'll be like, "All right, but don't call me because when you call, if someone calls, it drops the game connection, or if someone picks up the phone." So yeah, that was the start. And as time went on, I really liked the social element of gaming, how it provided a way for people to join with each other. I thought that was good because usually with games, gaming brings people together. Gaming brings, and my wife has seen it. She's here asking the questions. She's just laughing at me, and gaming really brings people together. And the evolution of gaming to allow that to happen, because the evolution of technology has allowed it to happen. There's faster internet speeds. I used to work in IT. I'm kind of off for the moment due to the vision issues. However, I've worked in IT. I was certified to troubleshoot and fix computers. So I know a lot about technology, and I've seen the evolution firsthand. Even because I guess I still am. I mean, I used I tested software for a long time. So I have seen technology advance in an enterprise environment, in a business environment, as well as the gaming sphere. And I've seen how amazing technology has just evolved and come, even to the point of VR. And VR I love because VR for me, especially for the games that I enjoy, which are also the subgenre of flight sims, space flight sims more specifically. And games like Elite Dangerous and games like that allow you to move around in the cockpit. And these games are actually developed with that in mind now, to the point that certain ships, especially like dogfighting ships and actual fighters, have a more extensive, expansive cockpit that you can actually look around and see the enemy because of where the windows and the glass are. And if you're flying like a hauler or something that really won't be doing combat, the glass and the cockpit itself is more cramped and not as spacious. And I love those details. Those little details with the graphic evolution, graphics being as good as they were. And mind you, I could play a really good game that has bad graphics. That was never an issue. But seeing the improvement of graphics and seeing the gameplay evolve to where it is now, where stories can be told in such a way, you have these RPGs that flesh out these stories with these videos, and it looks so expansive, so immersive. It's so amazing to actually see.
And I've really enjoyed where gaming is going. On the downside, gaming has been monetized in a way that I don't like. So, you have these battle passes which can be both positive and negative, because you have a game pass that is not required, that is only cosmetic items, maybe a boost here and there, but nothing so substantial that you feel like you have to get it. And then you have the ultra opposite, where you have the ultra predatory game passes that your game is pretty much worthless unless you actually buy this battle pass. And that's unfortunately the trend that gaming in general has really gone. And that's definitely, I don't know if that's an evolution, but it's a, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? You know the word I'm looking for, Barry? Because I can't think of it. The direction that the genre or the industry is going, and it's, some people think it's okay. I'm okay with the battle pass system. I am. I actually am. Giving some DLC content, but locking it to the point that the game is basically worthless without it is a little much, especially when you're charging $30 and you're releasing 5 game, battle passes a year. It's like, really? How are, Destiny 2? And it's unfortunate. It's games that I'd like to play too. And gaming, it's going to be interesting seeing where it goes, because after COVID, and the way development cycles, they changed after COVID. So now, it we'll see. It depends in a few more years which directions we're going. But all in all, it's positive. It's positive. The direction is definitely positive, and I'm hopeful that it'll continue to be positive. I mean, even being able to do this podcast, without tapes, and getting a radio that has 2 tapes, so I can mix in music in between talking and stuff like that, is great. So, well, my wife is actually pointing to my timer and telling me we are out of time. I am a talker, and I can talk, 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 as you have all just learned. If you haven't learned by now, I really enjoy this podcast. I said it earlier. I'll say it again. I really enjoy this podcast. I enjoy everyone who's been able to partake. I appreciate everyone who's been able to listen. I would say just spread the word about it. I Gamers are people, and hopefully these vision issues don't stop me from being able to continue. And just look forward to some more episodes coming 2023. We're not done. We're not done. We're going to keep going as long as we can, because it's fun. It's cool. So we're just going to wrap it up. I'm just going to tell you that you are awesome because you are. I'm going to tell you Jesus loves you because he does. And ganadora.